To understand how we get to this video, I gotta share a little context, a little backstory with you. In 2018, I decided to start posting to YouTube seriously. I occupy a very, very small guest bedroom, and I use my phone and a $30 shop light to start shooting videos. I quickly grow out of that space and I take over the garage, where I got my first camera and I start shooting videos there. Not too long after that, I have a dream. In that dream, I see my bedroom, but in that bedroom, I've lost my bed, and instead I've replaced it with two different sets. A nerd wall in the back, and then a blank wall, very much inspired by Unbox Therapy. I post there for a while, but in 2021, I get married. And me and my wife move into this house where I take over this room. It used to be kind of like this odd fitness room, workout room, but we converted it into the studio that you're seeing now. But for the last 6 months, I felt like it's time to move on. It's time for a change. The videos and the channel needs a little freshening up. There are three main reasons I decided to do this remodel. Number one, I simply need more storage space for gear. Number two, I wanted to get that gear off of the ground. This studio isn't very big, and so every single square foot I've got of floor space matters. And number three, I wanted to brighten the room tone. These two walls that I film into are very dark, and that can make for a more moody video than I intend. Here on the left, I've got my big Hulk poster, and I'm gonna be honest, this is kind of the impetus for this whole remodel. So I've had this thing for like 10 years and I've never hung it. It needs to get hung, but I'm gonna need a substantial amount of space to do it because it is huge. It will be hung on these concrete panels. My buddy Joey just put those into his studio and they look awesome. Plus the concrete color is really bright, much brighter than the dark gray. And I really like this kind of like modern industrial look. Then I've got the shelves on the wall. That's just more storage space for the gear like I mentioned. And then over here is the new plywood pegboard wall. Just to brighten up the room tone. And again, I think the wood grain will look really good with this other, like the dark gray and the concrete. So the first thing I need to do is obviously remove the pegboard wall, but I don't want to get rid of it. I feel like if I just relocate it, I can repurpose it and give myself even more storage. But before I take it down, I want to get measurements so I'll know what size of plywood I need to buy for the new pegboard wall. In all of my haste and excitement to get this done, I totally forgot that I have zero tools and knowledge of how to get this done. Thankfully, my next door neighbor Nick is insanely kind and does a ton of woodworking in his spare time. Somehow I managed to coerce him into helping me do this whole thing. And I'll say right now, if it wasn't for Nick, it would have never gotten done. Now this process did take a little longer than I expected, but then again, I'm not employing Nick, he's just helping me out of the goodness of his heart. So after measuring everything out, he cut everything and it was up to me to start drilling the holes in the pegboard. These are the panels that are going to cover the majority of this big gray wall. These are from Wall Theory and they are a faux concrete. You can see they're very thin, but because of this design, installing them kind of like little puzzle pieces is super easy. They look amazing, they're really lightweight, and they're really well built. Now, Wall Theory is the brand that I bought these from. They were super cool and gave me a pretty substantial discount to help me because they are not cheap, just FYI. But I highly recommend checking them out because it's probably the easiest way to completely redo the look of a room. Each one of these panels is 2 feet by 4 feet. I have 8 panels. And honestly, thinking about it, I think I'm gonna buy a few more. Not because I have to, but because I think running this section down below the pegboard is going to look great if I have a few more running along the bottom. So I will probably not have those for the end of this video, but it's something you'll see in later videos. This is where I get sketched out. Ripping stuff apart and taking things down, really easy. Building things, quite a bit different. And just cross your fingers, hopefully I don't blow this. I tried doing this once before with a tape measure, but tape measures to me are maybe the dumbest things in the world. This concave design is flimsy, it never holds its place. This is an absolute piece of shit. This is much better, and what I did was I took markings for every 6 inches because that's the whole pattern, and I just Sharpied it on here, and then we're gonna do a 4-inch border. Originally we were gonna do 3-inch border, but then the math wasn't mathing, and I had a complete meltdown. And so by doing a 4-inch border, math works out. So I've got a 4-inch and then every 6 inches. So basically on this piece of wood and the other 2 pieces, I'm going to be doing a grid in every intersection. That's where we'll be making our 1-inch hole for the 1-inch dowel. Not only did Nick donate his time and his tools, his expertise, he also donated his brain with his ability to do simple math, which is not in my wheelhouse. Even measuring the space for the holes and how big the pegboard needed to be was insanely frustrating, and I can't thank him enough for his patience and his help with this project. The hole spacing pattern we're doing on this is every 6 inches with a 4-inch border all the way around. And I did that, but I realized that I did the dots every 6 inches on the horizontal axis, but only 4 inches on the vertical axis. And I kind of want to chuck this camera as far as I can throw it, because I've been working on this thing for 3 hours because I can't do simple math. And I realized I probably shouldn't do that, and now I just have to redo everything. All right, well, after almost breaking everything last night, screwing one of these up after spending an hour and a half trying to figure it out, I did learn from my mistakes, and I finished that panel, and this panel's done, so I just have one more to do, then we can start drilling. And yes, it's an entirely different day, because I had to take the rest of the day off for anger management issues. Once we got the location of the holes all marked up, it was time to start drilling. Surprisingly, far more physically demanding than I could have anticipated, but it did go quick and kind of fun to do. Now it came time to hang the pegboard, and our original plan, or my original plan rather, was to just simply line the wall with 2x4s going across widthways and then just fasten and secure the pegboard to those boards. However, Nick had a much more elegant idea called a French cleat. Taking a 4-inch by 4-inch thick piece of wood, he cut it in half at a funky angle, attached one of those pieces to the wall and attached the other to the pegboard. And using gravity, he could just simply hang the board against the wall. This was a brilliant solution because not only was it faster, it used less wood, and it allowed me to take the pegboard off the wall if I ever needed to. And eventually we were able to get the third board done. During this process, I threw up a couple of photos up on Instagram showing the process and the progress. And a friend of mine, Brandon, reached out and said, "Hey man, I could have definitely done this on my CNC machine." This is Brandon Peterson. He's the genius designer behind Condor Blue. They make some of the best camera accessories and gear you can buy. But he also owns a company that builds skate ramps. Originally, when I bought the plywood, I was buying enough to cover the entire wall. The excess plywood we were able to turn into more pegboard walls if we needed. And with Brandon's help, we got that done. Instead of taking weeks, almost a month to get one wall covered in pegboard, it took just a few hours. And the majority of that time spent just getting the machine to work right. Once it did, holy crap, it was an incredibly quick process.
Yeah, here's the original drawing. I don't know if I'm getting some weird polarization, but big concrete panel in the background. And then I had some lights running vertically, the chair, all of this. And we're pretty much like on par for that. What we're gonna do now is I'm gonna take you to basically each section of the studio and kind of explain what changes were made, what I like about it, maybe what I don't like about it, because there are a few things that I'm like, crap, you know, this doesn't work as well as I had hoped it would. But anyway, yeah, let's go do that, and then we will reconvene and I will send you off.
This is the new and improved, mostly, pegboard wall. I wanted to ditch that very dark matte gray pegboard wall and go for a plywood pegboard wall for both look, because the wood grain just looks really cool with the kind of industrial dark look I already had. Two, it would also bring up the room tone, just meaning the brightness of the room. This room was so dark. This entire wall to my right was like almost black. This wall was almost black, and it caused a couple of problems. One, it always made the mood of the video much more serious than I intended it to be. I want it to be a little bit more lighthearted and fun. Bringing up the room tone can certainly do that. Two, it meant I had to like bring in huge, powerful lights to light the damn thing, and the room got super hot because of it. So by going for this plywood, one, I think it looks sweet. The room tone goes up. I can use less light because it's much brighter in here to begin with. Now, things that were also different is in this, I'm looking at the pegboard wall. On that pegboard wall, it's got really small holes, and each one is spaced about an inch apart. The holes on this one are spaced 6 inches, and they are an inch in size. So they've got this like a inch thick wooden dowel. Now, it's cool looking, however, it's not as functional. There are a couple problems. Because it's so widely spaced, I'm actually losing real estate for shelving. One of my big intentions with this was to, because of the amount of gear I had, was to get everything off the floor. And if I had this pegboard wall, like an additional pegboard wall, it would give me more space to do that. But when I did this, I actually lost some shelving ability. The second thing is, because we did these ones by hand, you know, I'm using that thing to drill in. I wasn't always perfectly vertical. And so what you get is like a hole that's got a ton, you can see that it's got like a ton of play. And because of it, you know, Nick was super cool. I mean, if it wasn't for Nick, this wouldn't have gotten done. So thank you, Nick. But these shelves over here, you know, he made them, and they basically sit on 2 dowels. Because the dowels move so much, I'm getting a lot of droop, a lot of tilt in these shelves, and so I can't put a lot on them. However, you'll see here in a second, the ones that my buddy Brandon did with his CNC machine, there's no play, and so the shelves can hold a lot more. But I love it. I love it. It's awesome. I'm very happy with it. And I just need to maybe make 1 or 2 more shelves, and then we're good. Last and certainly not least, my Parks and Rec Ron Swanson Pawnee Rangers Funko. The whole, I feel dorky for telling you this. The entire reason for me wanting to remodel the studio was because of that giant Hulk poster. It's pretty special. It's done by a really famous artist. It's massive. He didn't do too many of them. I was lucky enough to get one. And I finally got it framed. It is massive. And when I went onto Wall Theory's website, they had a massive Captain America, and I was like, oh my gosh, my Hulk will look perfect on this. It hasn't gone up, and I'm not sure if I'll put it up. I'll probably put the fasteners in so I can hang it and maybe just see what it looks like. But so is it done? This office is not completely done. It's still lacking the giant Hulk, which is ironic because that was the thing that started this whole thing. As you saw in the first part of this video, you saw me taking off that pegboard wall. And conveniently, instead of re-plastering it to this wall horizontally, I just flipped it vertically, and it ended up being the entire height of the wall. But it's given me, as you can see, just a ton of extra storage. And so I'm actually really pumped with how this turned out. I think it looks good, and it really didn't darken the room too much. And this is also, these two walls right here are not the walls that I shoot into. So that works out great. I've got these little bags. These are awesome. They're called Go bags. They're on Amazon. They're like 20 bucks a piece. And I've just got them labeled HDMI, audio, USB-C, video, yada, yada, yada. 8 of them. That way I can quickly find the little bits of kit that I have to use every single day. This is kind of like the gear I was talking about that was starting to pile up, and I was just constantly rummaging through. So I'm now way more organized, and it's off the floor. It just looks much cleaner in here, which I'm happy about. Big long shelf with all the lenses. We've got batteries that I don't use all the time. Drone stuff, FPV, regular drone, adapters, tripods, filters, cans of haze. I almost Jim Carreyed it where he's like. And then also I've got my big V mounts for the cinema camera and just a place to put caps. And that's it. Also, one thing you'll see in this space, one of the things I bought and I invested into to get things up off the ground, if you've ever seen a tripod or a light stand, they take up a ton of floor space. It's skinny and then it bows out. Well, I got these things called Vari-Poles. You can see one right here. And it's almost like a drywall pole, maybe painters use them or something, but it uses a very small footprint, and you just use tension against the ceiling, and then you can hang all sorts of stuff from it. I've got lights. On this one, I've got a light. I've got a mount for a camera, so I can just put it on there. And I was able to eliminate all of my tripods and all of my light stands, except for the tripod I'm using right now. All right, this last one is the wall you never saw, and it was white. And when we put these pegboards, remember I had the excess pegboard, the excess plywood, Brandon was able to cut these with his CNC machine. They're perfect. We hung them the exact same way as those three, so Nick helped me hang these. He created the French cleat. And they're just so great because you can literally just take them off and on. Like I wouldn't do it with all this stuff, they'd be super heavy, but yeah, you can just kind of pull it off and then stick it back on. And the only thing that's permanent are the two pieces that they hang on, so it's pretty cool. But the shelves are much more sturdy on this one because the holes are exact, like exact. There's no deviation whatsoever. But the wall, I ended up painting that dark gray. Had the paint left over, and when I put these on the white wall, it did not look good. So I ended up painting this wall, and I still suck at painting, like really bad. One of the things I really wanted to do is I had so many different brands of lights in here that I was running on like 3 different apps. And so I reached out to Nanlite, who make awesome lights, and I was like, listen, this is what I'm trying to do. I'd already had Nanlite tube lights, but they were all broken. Like the first ones that they made were pretty cheap, they were pretty bad. And you remember those, they were hanging horizontally or vertically in those videos. And they were RGB, they were cool, but they were cheaply made. And Nanlite was like, sure. And they went way above and beyond. They sent me 8 of their new ones. They are super bright if you need them to be. We can turn this way down. But these are their new pixel tubes, so that's 1%. But you get RGB, you get a CCT pulse, so you can pulse the white light, or you can put it on a hue loop and you can see that the pixels like actually change. You can see them like shifting up, and you can customize that. But one thing that I love about it is that they also sent me, you see this light right here? That's a light. Like sometimes I can make it look like a window light going through some shades. That is another light. That's the Forza 60C. That's full color. It's basically the same thing, but in a spotlight. And they gave me the spotlight projector. And then they also gave me this big like panel light. Well, it's actually not big, it's small. It's the 60C, the Pavo Slim. They sent me all those, and they sent me 8 of these so that I could completely redo the room in lighting and use one app. So one app can control all the lights simultaneously. It's pretty rad. Check it out. Or if I want to, and I don't want to change just like this one up here, I can like dim it to nothing. I can go up to 100%, but I can also change the CCT if I want. I can shift the green, magenta, or if I want to change it entirely, and I can go to like FX mode, we can make a cool special effect if I want to. You can program all sorts of crazy stuff from here, and you can do that for all of the lights. So how cool is that? Like you can do just about anything you want, all from like one app. And that was massively important. So Nanlite, thank you so much for donating these. If you are a creator and you want to take your production of your videos to the next level, I know cameras are enticing, lenses are enticing, but lighting is the way to go. Like you can just see like the difference. Like if I'm standing under a crappy light bulb, it looks like crap. But when I sit down and can get out a big source and really manipulate the light, that's when it looks great. And you can do that with a cheap camera or an expensive camera. Just get some really good lights. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me with this quick studio tour. If you've got any questions about anything I've used in here and you want to know more about it, please let me know. Like I said, it's not done. If you have any other suggestions for me, hit me up. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.